Okay, so today we're going to be proving the point that a complete moron can actually beat the Terraria Calamity Mod. And I am, of course, the moron. Now, I have played Calamity Mod several times, only with other people though. So this is going to be pretty tricky, and they always live and dodge all the attacks. I just die. So this is going to be interesting. So make sure you stay tuned and watch till the very end, because I begin to lose hope very quickly. Anyway, I began, as you always do, with creating a character and the world. Now, also bearing in mind, the Calamity mod is very well known for its good soundtrack. I use some of it in this video. However, I am very skeptical of copyright, and so some of them, because I was unsure of them, because YouTube doesn't like the lyriced ones, so I didn't use them. Just a heads up. Anyway, I loaded into the world. I had a crimson world, and I began, as you always do, by chopping down some trees. I then came across a cave just to my side, which I died immediately because, again, I'm a moron. So then I just decided to spend the rest of the time exploring. I went so far that I came across the jungle and came across a giant tree, which, interesting, and it had a load of beehives in the bottom. So, yeah, don't go there. Anyway, at this point, I then died because I just got swarmed. Also, note I'm not in revengeance mode or death mode or anything like that because I'm too stupid to realise that I didn't have it on. So please don't shout at me, but yeah, that's another point of me being a moron. But I went back into the cave, actually survived for a little while this time, allowing me to get some actual resources. I got my first life crystal, which is really good, increasing my health. I came across a lot of enemies in a glowing mushroom biome, which was pretty good because it meant I could get a lot more stuff, and there were generally more life crystals there. So I then came across the traveling merchant. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough money to buy anything, but instead I went up into space to the planetoids that are in the Calamity mod, which have tons of ores, sometimes life crystals, and there is one huge one that has a load of like computer stuff in it, which I'd need a little bit later on. So I explored those, got a load of good ores, which would allow me to create some good gear. I then went to the lab, and there were laser turrets which would shoot at me and try to kill me, and I had to break them with a pickaxe, which is quite annoying to do. But anyway, after I managed to destroy them, I looted up all the chests, got some pretty good stuff, came across another life crystal. I then made the full lead armor, which was pretty good because it gave me a lot of defense. I went back down to the glowing mushroom biome, kept on exploring. And now it's time to fight the Desert Scourge. And I got a new weapon to fight them with, the monstrous knives. However, I built a arena for the Desert Scourge. However, I didn't quite realise at the time that it said an evil presence was watching you. So, while getting swarmed by tons of enemies, I managed to get a Midas Spark from a Snidrian. I think that's what they're called. This is a really good accessory for this early in the game. But then, to my surprise, the Cthulhu spawned out of nowhere. So I had to deal with that, while yet again getting attacked by a ton of enemies. So that was fun. But luckily with the monstrous knives, because they do life steal, and there are quite a few of them, and they do a decent amount of damage. This fight, it was pretty quick. And I had now got the Shield of Cthulhu as well, which was an absolutely godly accessory to get so soon. I then fought the Desert Scourge, which I have to say the Amida Spark really carried me here. I mean, even though the monstrous knives were good because they could hit multiple segments, boy, that Amida Spark did way more damage. Like, way more damage. And so eventually I was able to defeat it, and now there was stuff to do with the Sunken Sea, which is beneath the desert by quite a way, which is where I need to go a little bit later on. So after looking through all of my beautiful loot, I then noticed that there was the Acid Rain event going on. I hadn't actually been to the ocean yet, so I went to the Sunken Sea underneath the desert to hopefully get a couple of the materials so that I can make some better equipment and so on. But I got swarmed, and so then I decided to go down to the sulfuric sea using a magic conch that I had found while I was down in the desert. And I decided to run away because this was way too much. So I went back down into the Sunken Sea and made some weapons like the Sea Shine Sword, which would be a pretty good weapon. So then with the Sea Shine Sword, because it shot a projectile, which was really nice, I fought the giant clam. Now, I had an accessory from a Desert Scourge, which allowed me to breathe underwater so long as I stood still. Luckily, the giant clam doesn't move much, so this was a really easy fight. Like, really easy fight. I then came across the Drayden lab that was down in the Sunken Sea. So I managed to get a good couple of things from there, including some schematics, which I could use to make some Drayden weaponry. I then went back to the surface, mined out an area for like an underground sort of base for stuff like my magic storage, trophy room, all sorts of stuff like that. I used some of the materials I had actually gotten from the Sunken Sea. I also dug out like half a desert for sand, but it's fine. I then bought a load of sand from one of the NPC mods, and I just filled up the gap because I didn't want there to be a giant gap in the map. I then went to the jungle, gathering the materials that I need for weaponry like the blade of grass and other things like that. So this was quite important. I also was after stuff like the feral claws, the anklet of the wind, all sorts of stuff that I could use to make better accessories and weaponry, which would help me in the fights to come. I then made the Axe of Regrowth and the Blade of Grass. I then went down to the underground mushroom biome for the next boss, being Crabulon. And boy, can I explain how badly this went. You'll see. You'll see. I'm not even kidding. Literally 0%. 0% health. And I die. Boy, that's embarrassing. But, luckily that didn't deter me. But before I went back down, I decided to make a surface arena for other bosses. And I decided to fight the King Slime because I hadn't done that yet. And so just to take it off the boss checklist really, I decided that I was just gonna kill him real quick. Which went fast enough. I then went back down to the glow mushroom biome and fought Crabulon once again. However, that one didn't go too well either. So I dug out a bigger area, so I had more maneuverability, which really actually helped quite a lot. So then I went and fought them again. However, once again, I died. Why am I so bad at this game? Can someone explain this? I mean, I'm sure there's a million explanations. Maybe it's just because I'm bad at games, but yeah, I suck. Anyway, after fighting Crabulon one more time, I was finally able to rest easy, knowing that I'd actually beaten it. Which was very nice. Now, also, I'm not playing a strict class, so I'm gonna use, because I feel most confident in melee, and not true melee either, because boy would I die a lot more times if I did true melee. But I'm just gonna use bog standard melee plus some summoner weapons maybe, just to give me some extra damage. But yeah, I just thought that this would be a decent time to just say that, in case you are like, oh my god, he's cheating. I'm not doing a strict class. Anyway, I went down to the Crimson to blow up some Crimson Hearts. And I summoned the Brain of Cthulhu. But because I had weapons like the Blade of Grass, also you might be thinking it looks kind of funky. That's because I had a weird swing animation mod on, but I get rid of that later on, so don't worry. I managed to defeat the Brain of Cthulhu pretty damn easily with the Blade of Grass. So this now allowed me to make the Crimtane armor, which gives me increased life regen, which would be very, very helpful. However, after I got back from the Crimson, I had a goblin army. Luckily, I was able to defeat them because I actually had some decent gear. Now, I was torn whether or not to use the Brain of Confusion, but I decided not to. I then made the full Crimtane armor set. I then went and fought the Brain of Cthulhu again for more tissue samples. I then beat it once again. I then made the full Crimson armor, as well as the Deathbringer pickaxe. I mined down to Hell. I came across a lab on the way. I mined a load of Hellstone, made a load of Hellstone bars, and made the volcano, as well as the full molten armor. As well as the molten pickaxe as well. I then went back down into the caves, came across nothing useful, made some more housing. I then found the Goblin Tinkerer underground, and bought the Tinkerer Workshop and the Rocket Boots. And now it was time to fight the Perforators. How fun. So I began the fight by destroying the Perforator cyst. And you can only imagine how bad this went. Anyway, after, because at certain intervals it spawned worms, and with the volcano I was doing alright at dealing some good damage. not the best. But then it spawned bigger worms. Bigger, meaner worms. And I died. So I went back and I fought it again. This time, I decided to focus more on the actual thing rather than the worms, which caused a lot of the worms to spawn at the same time, but allowed me to deal a lot more damage to the actual boss, allowing me to eventually defeat it. I then went to the jungle, made a jungle pylon, and now it's time for Skeletron. So I went to the dungeon, and I fought Skeletron. Now with the volcano, it's really, really good for dealing high amounts of damage, but only really in like one direction. And because of that, I died, and I had a surprise visit from a boss which definitely should not have existed yet. The Aquatic Scourge. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, I came across the Acid Rain again, and this time I actually completed it rather than running away. And I went to Fort Skeletron again. Luckily, I was able to defeat Skeletron this time, which gave me access to the dungeon. So I went down, and I unlocked a couple golden chests. I got the Muramasa, as you always do on like the first chest. I also got a Shadow Key, which is very helpful. I then also got the Mechanic, and I was going to make the Knight's Edge, but I realised I needed Purified Gel. Now this was a big problem, because I needed to fight the slime gods to be able to get Purified Gel. And I had a bad feeling about how this was going to go. So I summoned them for the first time. Because obviously I have fought these bosses before. Not on my own though. And normally my friends end up taking most of the damage. So yeah, I died quickly. But I realised I had no buffs on, which probably didn't help. So I made some Skyline Wings for better mobility, because I realised that was a bit of an issue on being able to actually get around and dodge them. And it was time to fight them once again. luckily, I was able to defeat them fairly easily after I had made the upgrades, and I finally made the Knight's Edge, which was going to be a very, very, very powerful weapon. So then I made a decryption computer, and I decrypted some of the Drayden schematics that I was talking about earlier. Now these things give me access to all sorts of new weapons and stuff. I don't use a lot of them, but I came across another weapon called the Fractured Arc. Now this weapon, I completely forgot about existing, but this is actually the weapon that is like key to probably the biggest crafting tree of the melee class in Calamity. So it was a pretty good weapon to get. Now I started the Old One's army, because just to get off the boss checklist. I won't show much, but here's the Dark Mage getting absolutely annihilated by it. And I fought a giant turkey from Terraria Mod. Fun. And so I built a bridge across Hell in preparation for the Wall of Flesh. The Wall of Flesh got absolutely annihilated. But anyway, due to the Calamity rework, breaking the altars doesn't give you the ores anymore. They automatically spawn after you defeat each mechanical boss. Instead, they give you Souls of Night, which would be very helpful for crafting. I then came across the brand new biome that spawns with hard mode, called the Astral Biome, or the Astral Infection. And I gathered a couple materials from there, which I could use later for crafting. I then made a really good accessory called the Bloody Worm Scarf, which is an accessory that you can probably take all the way pretty much close to the end of the game. I then went and mined Palladium, got the full set of Palladium armor, and fought Skeletron Prime. But after defeating Skeleton Prime, the new ores had spawned. I then went and mined loads of Orichalcum and Mithril ores. So then I could make the full set of Orichalcum armor and the next setup of tools. I then made some better wings, because having pre-hard mode wings this stage in hard mode wasn't exactly great. I then went to the Abyss to get some more stuff, but I drowned because I didn't exactly have the best gear. I then went and I fought the twins. Now I do have to say, the mech bosses in this playthrough were an absolute breeze. They were easy. Probably way easier than they should have been. But anyway, with the twins being defeated, I can now get adamantite and titanium ores, which would give me the next setup of gear. So I went and mined a load of them. I then settled with the titanium armor, because I like the set bonus that it gives you. And with that, I then went to the tundra to fight a boss which I was supposed to have fought in like a decent while ago before the mech bosses, called Cryogen. Now this fight, even though it's supposed to be pre-mech bosses, I actually found it pretty hard, and I did die, which is very surprising. Luckily with the right weapons, I was able to actually defeat Cryogen fairly easy in comparison. I then had unlocked cryonic ore in the caves. So then I decided to go down into the caves and get a load of the cryonic ore. However, on my way down the caves, I came across another one of Drayden's labs, this one being the final one you're supposed to find. And yeah, I have some good stuff now that I could use if I wanted to later on. I then made a really good weapon called the Dark Light Greatsword, which would be actually a pretty decent weapon for the next few bosses. And then I decided to fight the Destroyer for the ability to fight Plantera. I actually died, though, fighting this boss a couple times, which I have to say I wasn't expecting. So then I just decided to take a break and fight the Queen Slime just to tick it off the boss checklist, because, you know, I like being complete. I like completing stuff to the most extent I possibly can. But anyway, I now realised it was time to fight a boss which had accidentally shown itself to me earlier, when it really shouldn't have. So, yeah, it was time for the Aquatic Scourge. And I have to say, this fight was the deadest fight in the entire playthrough. Like, just watch this, right? He goes in circles, shooting out some spikes. That's it. That is the fight. He goes in circles and shoots out a couple spikes. I don't mean to diss the Aquatic Scourge, but this fight was so bad. I just wanted it to be over, not because it was hard, but because it was so boring. But yeah, so that was definitely a thing. But anyway, now that I've destroyed the Aquatic Scourge, I can now do the next tier of Acid Rain, which is exactly what I did after. And upon completing that, there was nothing. Except pirates, who just decided to come knocking at my door. So I had to deal with those very quickly, which, to be honest, very easy to deal with, not exactly hard. I'm way past that point. But yeah, I just kind of put all the stuff that I got away. Never saw the daylight again, that stuff didn't. I then went to the Brimstone Crags for some reason, started mining down a bridge. I don't know exactly why I was doing this, but I did it. I then made the legendary Biome Blade. Or, I made the Biome Blade and reforged it to legendary. This weapon was actually pretty good because its projectiles could actually hurt. I then fought the Brimstone Elemental, which, again, to be honest, a pretty dead fight because it was just running to one side and then going the other way. I mean, honestly, the step from these bosses to the post Moon Lord bosses it's a pretty big step, I have to say. But yeah, I was able to defeat it, and yeah, I didn't really get anything good from it, but yeah, that was that. So then I made even more housing because I had so many NPCs, and I had like, I think it was 2 NPC mods, maybe it was 1, maybe it was 2, I can't remember. But now it was time to fight the Calamitous Clone. And can I just say, in these dodge phases, be prepared to see me get hit by every single projectile you could possibly see on the screen. Haha, just kidding. Seriously though, I do get hit a lot. Anyway, I was able to defeat the Calamitous Clone actually on the first try, which I was thoroughly impressed with, to be honest. I then went to the jungle. I came across the Jungle Drain Lab, which wasn't too useful, but I got the stuff anyway. I then made the Blood Orange, which was an upgrade to my maximum health, which was very helpful. I had already consumed the max amount of life fruits as well, so yeah, that was really good. I then decoded some more schematics. I then charged a seeking mechanism to take me to the Drain Lab in Hell, which would allow me to get access, but not use the Murasama, which was a really OP true melee weapon. I then farmed for some money using some pretty unorthodox methods. I then went back and fought the Destroyer again, and as you can see, he was spewing out probes like crazy. But yeah, the Biome Blade was actually pretty good for that fight. I defeated him. I then went to the jungle to make an arena for Plantera, and this fight also pretty damn easy. And so I won't show too much of it. But after I had defeated Plantera, so there were some messages. So I can now get Perennial War. I could now fight the Great Sand Shark, and obviously the dungeon has now gone into hard mode as it normally does. So I then went and mined a load of Chlorophyte for things like turtle armor, and also got some Perennial Wars there. I then made a solar eclipse happen using a solar tablet. I beat the solar eclipse. And with the sword, with the Broken Hero Sword, I made the Arc of the Ancients, which was the next tier up to the previous Arc weapon that I had. And this one shot out projectiles like 90% of the time, so that was very helpful. I then made a load of the perennial bars to see what I could make with them. But to be honest, there wasn't a lot that was very useful, but there were a couple things. I then made the Master Ninja Gear, which was a very, very good dodge accessory. I then made an Ornate Shield, which is basically an upgrade to the Ankh Shield, essentially. And I combined it with the Ankh Shield to make the Asgard's Valor, which was, like, both of them combined. So, even better, I suppose. And that can be upgraded once again. I don't really know the point in having two dodge accessories, but... or two dash accessories, but I have them. So then I went back to the Jungle Temple to fight Golem. And this fight, pretty easy, again. And after I had defeated him, a plague had befallen the jungle, meaning I could now fight the plague bringer Goliath if I wanted to. However, I wasn't quite ready for that yet, so I made the full turtle armor, and with the full turtle armor, I made the full beetle armor and went for the tankier chestplate. I then started up a sandstorm to fight the great sand shark, but to be honest, I wouldn't even classify this as a boss as such. It just kind of jumped out of the sand at me, that was it. It dropped nothing really useful, so pretty much a waste of time. But anyway, now it was Anita and the Leviathan on my checklist next. So I went and built an arena in the ocean, which was not the sulfuric ocean because it can't spawn there. So I then also realized that Astrum Auris was after Anita and the Leviathan, so I did some preparation, getting Scoria and going into the Abyss before. Then I began the fight. Now this fight was pretty easy. When the Leviathan spawned, I mean, I got hit by the balls like maybe once or twice, but that was it. All I can say about this fight, the hitbox on the Leviathan was very, very skewed with my parrying, because sometimes I'd be like right inside of him and it wouldn't parry. So it was kind of annoying, but at the end of the day, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do any better with the mod myself, so I mean, I can't really complain too much if I'm not prepared to be able to do something about it myself. But yeah, the fight went fairly quickly apart from the fact that I couldn't parry. So yeah, just generally pretty easy. Anyway, after the Leviathan was down, it was just Anita left, and because of my projectiles coming out my sword were homing, it was fairly easy to deal with, and I could actually parry this one, so yeah, pretty good. Now, I didn't even think about getting the community for whatever reason, so just don't even. So I made some life alloys with the Scoria that I got before fighting Anita and the Leviathan, saw what I could make with them. I then decrypted another schematic using the decryption computer. I then made a weapon like the Murasama called the Omniblade, but less powerful. Now it was time for Astrum Auris. Here we go. Anyway, after Astrum Aros was defeated, it actually took a bit of effort to actually beat that, to be honest though. But it changed a couple things with the astral enemies, but nothing huge. I didn't really get much of anything good from his actual loot, but at least I had ticked it off the checklist, which was the main thing for me. So yeah, pretty good, I'd say. Pretty good. It was now time to fight Duke Fishron, which was really a boss I wasn't too concerned about, to be honest, because I knew the Duke Fishron like attack pattern pretty well, I'd say. So the fight didn't last very long. So now it was down to the Plaguebringer Goliath, which was a bit of a menace of a boss, I have to say. In the end, I was able to defeat the Plaguebringer Goliath, but the amount of projectiles made that fight really hard, so I had to go onto the surface. But I was able to defeat it, and that is the main important thing. I opened the treasure bag, got nothing really good. I then went fairy hunting, essentially, and I died to the Empress of Light many times until eventually I was able to defeat it. I don't know why a vanilla boss took so many attempts to defeat, but hey, it is what it is. I then did the next year of Old One's Army. I died at the end, don't exactly know how, but there you go. Now it's time for the Ravager. In the end, I was able to defeat Ravager fairly easy. I mean, like, really easy. I managed to get a good accessory called the Blood Pact, though, which was able to give me, like, a load more health. And it was actually a very powerful thing to have. Especially when I'm trying to be as tanky as I am. Like, having that much health is really good. But at this point in the game, there are not many bosses left, and, or at least in hard mode anyway. So now it's time for Astrum Dias. I died a couple times to this boss. But I did not back down. Overall, this was... It wasn't hard, but it definitely wasn't the easiest boss. But I was able to defeat him, and that is what is important. This now brings me on to the last couple of bosses. And next was the Lunatic Cultist. But what next to come was going to be a lot harder. So I went to the dungeon, and I began the fight with the Lunatic Cultist. Overall, the fight, it was annoying, but it didn't last very long. So that was pretty good. But now is where it gets very, very interesting. And if somebody wants to do a death count, I wouldn't be against that, because the numbers from this point onwards only exponentially increase. But anyway, with some of the Melblobs, I made the Entropic Claymore, which was the weapon I was going to use for what was about to bloody happen. It was now time to fight Astra Gelatin from the Catalyst mod. with that, I had actually seriously, legitimately just beaten what I believe is actually classed as a super boss by myself. I have fought the boss before with my friend. That's it. I could not believe that I had actually just beaten Astrogelton. I was so hyped the fact that I had actually managed to do this. And this opened up a huge window of opportunities, including a brand new ore called Metanova, which is the equivalent to the post-Moonlord Eula Bloom ore, which is crazily good. And it also, at the very end of the game, allowed me to make a new set of armor called the Auric Tesla Armor Plus, which is basically the end game armor, but slightly improved, which was really, really, really good. So, with that, I went down and I mined a ton of the new ore, like an absolute ton of it, because I needed a lot. I then made a ton of the bars, like loads of the bars, so I could make absolutely everything I needed to at that point. And it allowed me to make an armor set called Intergalactic Armor, which just ridiculously good. So I made the full set of Intergalactic Armor. I'm so tempted every time to say Intergalactic, but it's Intergalactic. Funny pun. Anyway, yeah, this stuff is insane. So if you want to read through all this armor set bonus and stuff, just pause the video, but it does a lot, okay? That's all you need to know. It is really freaking OP. So with that, I then went and destroyed the Solar Pillar, the Nebula Pillar, the Vortex Pillar, and finally the Stardust Pillar, and waited for Moonlord to arrive. And with that, Moonlord was down, and I was now in the post-Moonlord part of the game. Now, because I had the Metanova armor, I had a huge advantage here, and I was able to just fly through the first part of this. So I made the next part of the Arc weapon, the Arc of the Elements, which was a really crazily good weapon. I farmed loads of materials that I'd need for boss summons and etc. And I made the Profaned Shard, which would allow me to summon the Profaned Guardians. I had defeated the Profane Guardians, which was very good because it also gave me the summon to Providence, which I'd need just a little bit later. But for now, the next boss on my list was the Dragon Folly. And I defeated the Dragon Folly very, very easily. Like, that boss got melted. It was crazy. But now, it was time for a boss much harder. Providence. This would bring me up to the level of gear that I'm at currently. So I'd be pretty balanced from this point on. I would have to say, I dealt with that pretty well. I didn't die a single time while killing Providence, so I thought I did pretty well with that fight. But anyway, I had now unlocked a couple new things, including Eula Bloom Ore, which was essentially the equivalent to the Metanova stuff that I had earlier. So now I'm pretty much at the point in the game where I'm not stupidly OP, and I'm not stupidly weak. It's about that point. But now it was time for something so much worse. The servants of the Scourge, Ceaseless Void, Cygnus, and the Stormweaver. I had now defeated the Ceaseless Void. However, there was still 2 more bosses to go. I went down to the jungle and mined a load of Eula Blue Moor and made a really good weapon called the Teratoma, and it has homing projectiles that are really quite strong. I had also now defeated the Stormweaver, and the only servant of the Scourge left was Cygnus, Evany of the Destroyer. I think I'm saying that right anyway. And with that, I had beaten all of the servants of the Scourge, leaving just the Poltergeist before the Devourer himself. And with that, I had beaten the Poltergeist, leaving just one boss between me and the Devourer, being the old Duke. I also made a really good weapon called the Death's Ascension, which is a really good weapon. It has homing death sickles. OP. I'm telling you, man. If you play Calamity, use it. But I completed the next tier of the Acid Rain, and Old Duke spawned once I'd completed it. Now this fight, not my favourite fight, but it was pretty easy. So I wouldn't show too much of it, but yeah. It was just kind of like slightly more damage, slightly more health Duke Fish Rush, which is exactly what it would seem like. And with that, I'd beaten the old Duke. Now, this left just the Devourer himself, which, this is where the death count goes sky high, let's say. So at this point, I was losing hope fast. I mean, you've just seen how much I was actually struggling. And so I made one last ditch effort with the Death's Ascension as my weapon, and you will see exactly why I like this weapon so much. It carries so hard. I had just done it. I have beaten the Devourer of Gods. That took so much time, so much effort, and that was just the Devourer of Gods. I still had Yaron, the Exomechs, and Supreme Calamitous to go. How on earth I managed to cope, even with the Devourer, I am shocked. But anyway, I had I defeated the Devourer. Huh? I had defeated the Devourer now, which meant I could get a load of really good stuff. With Cosmolite stuff, I could now get Godslayer armor. I could get Ascendant Spirit essences with the new events, or new upgraded events in the Frost Moon, the Pumpkin Moon, and the Solar Eclipse. So all I did for the next while is just gather so many resources and just get a ton of upgrades, like a serious ton of upgrades. But boy, if I did not have the Death's Ascension, I don't think I would have ever gotten past in this stage of the game. Like, I genuinely don't think I would have been able to have done it. So I made the Godslayer armor, which I was conflicted about because I wasn't sure whether it was better than the Intergalactic armor, but I thought it was worth it, so I did it anyway. Along with this, I now had the Murasama to use, but I wasn't confident in true melee. But I also had a weapon called the Galaxia, but it's now time for Yaron, so even more suffering. But let's do this. I've got to be honest, Yaron was so much easier than the Devourer of Gods. Like, I don't even know how, but it was just so much easier. And the Death's Ascension, man, it is a crazy weapon for this stage in the game. It's actually just broken. I love it. But anyway, I can now get auric ore, which was very, very good. It was a bit annoying to mine because it bounced you back, but I then made the final upgrade to the Ark, called the Ark of the Cosmos. I then made a load of bloodstone cores for the blood flare armor set, which would come into use very, very soon, as I would be able to make the auric Tesla armor plus. So that's exactly what I did. I just needed to make a couple more auric bars, which I did, and then I was able to simply craft the auric Tesla armor plus. Now, I think the plus just gives a bit of extra defense. So I made the helmet, the chest plate, and the boots. And yeah, this armor set is, I think, the best armor set in the game. But now it's time for the Exo Mechs. with that, the second to last boss, the Exomechs, were done. I now only had Supreme Calamitas left. Boy oh boy, what could go wrong? But before I get to Supreme Calamitas, I can make some really good stuff with the things I got from the Exomechs. I also got the Draiden's Heart, which allows you to essentially turn Adrenaline mode into nanobots that heal you. And because I'm not in Revengers or anything, I don't have Adrenaline, but it's very helpful to have. But I noticed I can make the Exoblade, which is essentially an upgrade to the Teratomir. And boy oh boy is this thing strong. This is the best weapon I think I had. So here we go. And with that, I had finally beaten the Terraria Calamity Mod by myself. One moron is more than enough to beat Calamity Mod. I sincerely hope that you guys have thoroughly enjoyed this. I know I did enjoy making the video. I know I enjoyed playing it. I know I enjoyed editing it. I have to say, this is one of the bigger videos that I've ever done, so it takes a lot more storage, but if you guys would like to see more of this, make sure to comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this kind of video idea. But if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to smack that like button and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.